Greetings, this is Ty Brown with AthleticDirectorU. I am here at the 2022 NACDA convention. Happy to be back on site here in Las Vegas. I'm joined by Dave Blank. Dave is the Director of Athletics at Elon. Greetings, Dave. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. It's a busy hallway. There's a lot of people here.
There are a lot of people walking around, but I think we're making it work. You know, I wanted to talk to you, and we could have a normal conversation, right? Sure. Constituency relationships for president and student athlete experience, which we'll probably actually get into because it's hard to avoid when you're talking to an athletics director. But athletics director for 17 years. Third stop as an athletic director. Right. You coached basketball before. Of course, you played basketball, and you worked your way all the way up through almost 40 years in the industry. There's a significant experience there. But when you're talking about transitioning from coach, I guess there's an aspect of you are always developing people, whether they were student athletes, whether now it's head coaches and assistant coaches, or the staff that you hire, or even other people on campus who may or may not understand the value of athletics in terms of it being a part of the academic mission of the university. Talk to us a little bit about that, about coaching people and helping people understand who they are and how they can be the best person they possibly
can. Yeah,
be.
I think it goes with a skill set. It used to be the football coach used to be the AD or become the AD. It was a stereotype almost. And it doesn't always have to be that way. There's a lot of us, some of the ones that do it are probably a little older like me, but the coaching never leaves you. So I was fortunate enough to go to college to try to be a student athlete. I got injured and that ended quickly, but it was a situation where I was passionate about college athletics. Right. And so I got into coaching really as a U-turn where I wasn't even thinking about that. Mm-hmm. And the same thing happened to me relative to being an administrator, where I wasn't even thinking about being an administrator. And I had an incident in my life where my oldest child was born during a game I was coaching basketball. Right. And it had an impact on me as a professional and wanting to be a family father. And my wife and I just talked about it. And so I made a transition. That's how I got to Coastal Carolina. Yeah. To make that transition. So I did not attend administrative school, or I don't have a sport management degree or those kinds of things. I do all of the administrative work that I'm doing with my coaching background. And so I like to think that I do an awful lot of coaching. They're the same skills. What you're basically trying to do is create an outcome that you want to help somebody be successful through mentoring. And sometimes mentoring is strong, and sometimes it's weak, and sometimes it's positive, sometimes it's negative, because you have to let whatever you're mentoring grow through those aspects. Yeah. And that's the way I've kind of approached it. Now, there's a whole side of being an athletic administrator that goes with all the other elements. Yeah. But, I coached from my gut, and I AD from my gut a lot of times. And I like to think that really helps the people that I get to work with be themselves and apply themselves to their own careers and find a way that they can be successful that hopefully helps them attain happiness in their careers.
What they're doing. I want to dive into mentoring, but you said something that I want to ask you about before we get there. As a basketball coach, your oldest child was born while you were coaching the game. Yeah. Now I'll tell you the question, right? It's two-parter. First, were you thinking about administration before that? Or second, sometimes in our life there is a significant emotional event that leads to an inflection point in our career or in the direction we're going. Was that inflection point, and were you thinking about administration before that you came to that inflection point?
Had no thought of doing anything other than coaching basketball. Right. Definitely a situation that occurred that impacted me so strongly that I understood coaching well enough to know the things that were necessary to be successful. Right. And in looking at those things and trying to assess whether I think I could keep doing them, the answer was I choose family. Right. And so, it was an impactful event and one that I have never second guessed. I have 4 children and a great loving wife, and they've been the joy of my career and the joy of my life. So I wouldn't change anything. I coached a team for 33 consecutive years. I went back and looked at it all from when I first started coaching to when I coached youth teams. Some teams my kids were on, some teams they weren't. Right. Things in the community, but things that I knew that just fulfilled me. It really made me it was the joy of my life. And they were all different sports. They weren't all basketball. So I had a lot of fun with it, but I never strayed from my goal being to build a family the way I wanted to do that with my wife, and that's been important. So yes, a single event
Single
that caused
significant
that.
emotion. I think about that because, you know, whether you won or lost a game, right? You'll probably don't even remember because
I do. Yeah, I can tell you, and my assistant will see this, and I tell him we were up 1 at half and we lost the game.
Oh wow! but you think about that is like the self-reflection. You come home and there's a new kid, and you start thinking, man. The coaches I know from my time at the American Football Coaches Association, the first question they ask young coaches is like, can you live without it, right? And so you think about it, after a game, you lost the game, come home and there's a new kid, so the loss doesn't necessarily matter. But it's like, what am I doing? You know what I mean? Like, this family is starting.
So here's what happened. I didn't come home to a new kid. I got talked to by the police going into the locker room at halftime and told to call home. I went in the locker room. I told the team I got to go. Turned it over to my assistant, went home and got my wife, got her to the hospital, and 45 minutes later, I had a son.
Oh, wow. Okay. I thought the son was born while you were coaching.
The game went on, right? But not for me.
Not for you.
And the rest is history, and that's how it happened. And I was lucky and fortunate enough to be there for the birth and for that matter, for all 4 of my children. But that's probably added to the impact of the event that just made it so emotional that it made me think about everything. How can I continue my athletic career, but yet be devoted to my family? And
that is significant, right? You're understanding your purpose, right? Not just in football coaching. There was an aspect a few years ago that I started having conversations with coaches, like, don't confuse your purpose with your goals, right?
Sure, yeah.
Right? The purpose doesn't change. The goals, the outcomes of the purpose may change, right? The goals are there to help you execute your purpose. That kid was like, okay, yeah, you know what? I know why I'm in this. I know why I'm here. I know what we're doing. I'm going to go work in administration. That's so interesting.
Well, if you've ever been around high-powered athletics or high-powered athletes, and you certainly have, then they would tell you that one of the most important aspects, this is my opinion, right, to being successful is balance. And if you're off balance in any way, you can't really focus on the thing that's most important to you at that point in time, which may be in your next competition or what you're trying to do as an individual athlete. If you're off balance in other aspects of your life, it affects you. And so that's just kind of what I've always tried to look at. I need to be balanced in all phases of my life to be happy, and I need to know that all those phases are happy. So it's important to me as an athletic administrator that those that work with me and the coaches and the athletes that I get the pleasure and joy of watching, that we're doing everything we can to help them be balanced and have the best experience they can have.
Yeah, that's important. Going back to mentorship, right? Especially coaches, especially young coaches who think I need to outwork everybody in the history of coaching in order to be successful at what I'm doing, and finding balance is not something that's high on the radar for them. Talk about that aspect when you talk about coaches and even the administrators that work for you that come in and think they need to over-index themselves to be successful. How do you coach them out of that?
You know, the interesting part of hiring somebody is the first thing they do is move. So the first thing you're looking at is getting settled. And to me, that's all you need to think about. You're getting that balance right from the beginning. And so as you go forward in your career and trying to do everything you can to be successful, I think you have to keep that in mind. So I talk to people that work with me regularly about balance in life and not being afraid about taking vacation time and doing the things they need to do for themselves or their families, or go see your parents while they're alive, things like that are important. You have to have that balance, because one day you're going to look at it and say, I wish I'd have done this differently.
I would have had that last conversation with my mother,
That's right. Yeah, and I think we at the top, I get the pleasure of being the athletic director. I could push everybody into the ground because all that matters is we got to win at Elon. That's not self-fulfilling to me. It's more about the balance. It's more about who we serve. It's more about helping others be successful and doing that as best we can as a team. And that includes our athletes, our administrators, our coaches, the president, everybody that's on board with each other, trying to create that team to be successful.
Yeah. You think about that aspect of balance. Student athletes, and of course you've been around them all your career pretty much. at times, student athletes can have a hard time separating who they are from what they do, right? And I wonder about that aspect when you talk about balance, when you talk about helping coaches to help student athletes understand the difference between them being an athlete and them being a person, who they are versus what they do. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, well, student athletes are not all green. They're all different colors. They're all different. They're driven differently. And so I think part of the art of coaching is being able to coach individuals as well as make them into a team all at the same time. And you can't do one or the other. They're not exclusive. They have to go together. And so you have to understand that this person can be coached negatively and can take it, but this person can't. And so you have to love them up and you have to try to get your results in different ways. And I just think that applies to every aspect of coaching and athletics, that you have to understand all the different pieces and you have to treat people the right way that are going to help them be successful. I just think that's always been one of the keys for me of trying to figure that out.
When you talk about being somewhere going into your 17th year, you probably have people that have been along for the journey with you for multiple years. Yeah. And when I'm a big follower of what Hayden Fry did at Iowa, where a bunch of the people that worked for him went off to become leaders and other head coaches all over the place, right? From Bill Snyder all the way to Bobby Stoops and a lot of people like that. When people work with you, if your style is to coach people up so that they have balance and they can be the best person that they can be, I wonder about the people who have worked with you that have become leaders within your department that may not have coached before, but they have adapted the style of helping others to coach people up and become the best they can be. Is that a philosophy that has permeated over the last 17 years in terms of other leaders in your department?
You know, I think that happens innately. It's up to the person. I can't tell you that there's a huge Dave Blank coaching tree out there if that's what you're looking for.
Right, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But even just internally, right? It doesn't have to be.
Well, maybe I say it this way. I just had 2 senior associates retire. And that one worked at Elon for 41 years and one worked at Elon for 35 years. Wow. So that usurps my entire 17 years. Maybe there's something to that they were having fun and that they found what they wanted at a place that they could stay and enjoy what they were doing. I've had others come and go, and I think as a non-autonomy 5 level, that's what we do. We develop people, they succeed, and they want to move up because they're all aspiring. So there's been a number of them come and go across my career at different schools as well. So, but I've never really looked at it any other way than I'm hoping that I can help influence and mentor people to where they want to go. And I've never been offended by people that want to come to Elon or wherever I've been, Drake or Coastal, and I want to get better and then move on or move up. Because the only way they do that is to make the place that I'm at better.
Yeah, 100%. If you're good enough to move on, that means that you've been great while you were here.
Yeah, and so I think we take that's the business that we're in, that unless you're at the Autonomy 5 level, if that's seen as the pinnacle of college athletics, then we're all in that same boat where we're going to lose people to other places if they're good and they get those opportunities. I think our job is to be supportive. It's the same thing as a student athlete. We have to support the student athletes, and we know 2% of them make it where they think they're going to go as incoming first-year college students. 2% of them are going to make it, and at a lot of places, not even 2%. So what we're really trying to do is help them pursue their goals and their aspirations and sit back and hope for the best. But I never lose sight of the fact that my favorite thing to do is stand on that fence or sit in that gym and get to watch them perform, because that's really what makes it go for me.
That's excellent. I'll ask you a couple questions here, and then we'll wrap. Many times I talk to an athletics director who has been somewhere, even just for 7 years, and they're on their 2nd or 3rd president, and provost just turned over 3 or 4 times. You've only had 2 presidents there.
Yeah.
I mean, talk to us about why that's a benefit, and then also developing those relationships with the president when they come in, and somebody was there for a long time, and now you got somebody who's been there for a few years now. So
sure,
talk to us a little bit about that dynamic.
I think it's critical. If you can have that kind of consistency, you're fortunate. And Elon is just an institution that has built that kind of consistency. I can give you lots of names of people that have been there 20 plus years at the institution. Our former president, Leo Lambert, was at the institution from 99 to right about 2017 when President Book took over. Connie Book is our president now. And she actually was a faculty member at one point at Elon and served on the senior staff, and then went to another job away from Elon and then came back as our president. So I've really had the luxury of knowing both presidents the whole time I've been at Elon. I would tell you that I don't have anything negative about that for you. There's no, I just think the consistency, but I've worked for two really good presidents that really cherish Elon. And that's something that I think you do as an athletic director. You understand the culture that you're working in, which I obviously do over 17 years. And the presidents do the same thing. They build that culture. And both of these presidents were involved in building that culture that I've been fortunate enough to serve. So it's been a wonderful experience for me. And see what is around the corner with it.
Last question here. Many times young coaches, when they get into a coaching profession, they tend to coach how they were coached, right? Which can sometimes be a negative thing because they may have come from somebody who didn't necessarily coach the best way. And then as you move on, you may learn how to be better as a coach and get the most out of the people you're coaching. I wonder about for you, you've been you coached for a long time, and then now you're, like you mentioned, you're still coaching people from the AD chair. Are you coaching people the same, or does the way you lead people and develop people, has that developed over the years too?
Yeah, I think it's evolved, and I haven't given it much thought. It's really a great question because your coaching style can be defined in different ways depending on what you're coaching. But to me, I think the key is finding out what makes people tick. And so when I referenced earlier about everybody's not green, there's all different colors, you've got to do that in all aspects if you're in leadership. And so some people can be mentored, some people don't want mentored. Some people can be coached and other people can't be coached. But you have to figure out what makes people feel good about what they're doing and then do everything you can to support that. You have to let them understand what they can be in charge of and then let them be in charge of it. But they also have to understand some things they can't be in charge of, and you have to know how to communicate those kinds of skills as well. So it's really understanding the individuals that you're working with, and just always be mindful that we're all serving a student athlete, and we're all lucky that we get to do it, and we're doing the same thing. We just do it in different areas of the athletic department, and somebody has to be in charge. I'm lucky enough to be that person, but at the same time, everybody's in charge of their area, and I hope that they look at it that way of you can be your own CEO in your area, and then as you spread your wings, who knows what's around the corner for you.
Well, this has been an excellent conversation. I really appreciate you joining us here at Athletic Director.
Yeah, sure thing. Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. That was Dave Blank. He is the Director of Athletics at Elon. And of course, this is Ty Brown with AthleticDirectorU. And keep in mind, the role of a leader is to create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of. And as always, be better tomorrow than you are today.